You know that feeling when your phone buzzes at 8:47 p.m. and you see your boss's name on the screen? You stare at it for 3 rings before you answer because you're trying to compose yourself, trying to sound casual, trying to hide the fact that you're terrified of what they're about to ask you to do. Hey, sorry to bother you so late. I know it's your day off tomorrow, but we really need someone to cover the Johnson account presentation. And here's what goes through your head in that split second. I can't say no. What if they think I'm not a team player? What if this affects my next review? What if they start looking for someone more flexible? I need this job. I have $800 in my checking account and rent is due in 12 days. So you say yes. You cancel your plans. You show up. You smile. And you hate yourself a little bit more. My name is Victor. I'm a little obsessed with money. I spent tens thousands hours studying the patterns that help some people move forward fast, while others stay stuck in the same financial loop for years. If you want to understand money through numbers and psychology, instead of motivational sound bites, stick with me in this video. It might make you a little uncomfortable, but it will be useful. That number is $5,000. Before we get into the mechanics of why $5,000 works, let me ask you something. When was the last time you made a decision purely because you wanted to, not because you had to? Think about that for a second. When was the last time you said no to something and actually meant it? Not no, but maybe later. Not no, I wish I could, but just no. Simple. No anxiety attached. For most people living paycheck to paycheck, the answer is never. Every decision is filtered through fear. Fear of losing your job, fear of not being able to pay rent, fear of your car breaking down, fear of one unexpected expense destroying everything. You don't have choices, you have obligations. And that feeling, that constant low-grade terror that sits in your chest like a stone, that's what's actually killing you. Not the lack of money, the lack of options. Here's what the research shows. According to a study by the Federal Reserve, 40% of Americans couldn't cover a $400 emergency expense without borrowing money or selling something. 40%. That means 2 out of every 5 people you know are one car repair, one medical bill, one unexpected expense away from financial collapse. But here's what's interesting. The same research shows that people who have just $2,400 in emergency savings report significantly lower stress levels than those with zero savings. We're not talking about life-changing money. We're talking about enough to cover a couple months of basic expenses. And when you push that number to around $5,000, something remarkable happens in your brain. You stop operating in pure survival mode. Let me explain what I mean by survival mode. When you have no savings, your brain is constantly scanning for threats. Every email from your boss triggers a stress response. Every unexpected expense feels like an existential crisis. Every decision is filtered through the question, can I afford to do this? Your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for long-term planning and rational decision-making, basically goes offline. You can't think about your future when you're worried about surviving the present. Psychologists call this scarcity mindset. Your brain is so consumed with immediate threats that it literally cannot think about growth, opportunity, or long-term planning. It's like trying to plan a vacation while your house is on fire. Your brain won't let you do it. But when you have $5,000 saved, something shifts. You're not rich. You're not even financially secure by most standards. But you have enough of a buffer that your brain stops treating every day like a survival situation. And that changes everything. Let me give you a concrete example. Your boss calls at 8:47 p.m. asking you to work on your day off. With $0 in savings, here's what goes through your head. I need this job. I can't risk pissing them off. What if they're looking for reasons to let people go? What if saying no makes me look like I'm not committed? I have to say yes. With $5,000 in savings, here's what goes through your head. Do I want to do this? No. Am I going to do it anyway? Also, no. I have enough runway that even if this somehow affects my standing here, I'll be fine for a couple months while I figure things out. Same situation, completely different response. The $5,000 doesn't make you reckless. It makes you rational. Here's what most people don't understand about having a small emergency fund. It's not actually about the emergencies. Listen carefully. It's about the peace of mind that comes from knowing you can handle emergencies. Most people who build up $5,000 in savings never actually spend it on emergencies. They spend it on opportunities. Or they don't spend it at all. They just let it sit there, doing its real job, which is giving them psychological breathing room. Because here's the thing, when you know you have options, you start making better decisions across the board. You stop taking jobs purely because you're desperate. You start evaluating whether they're actually worth your time. You stop staying in toxic work environments because you need the stability. You start recognizing that stability doesn't mean anything if it's destroying your mental health. You stop saying yes to things you don't want to do just because you're afraid of the consequences of saying no. Of course, the $5,000 cannot buy you freedom from work, but it's buying you minimal level of freedom to choose. Let me show you the math on what $5,000 actually covers. For most people, $5,000 represents about 6 to 8 weeks of bare bones expenses. Rent, utilities, food, survival. If you lose your job tomorrow, you have 2 months to find something new. It's enough time to be selective. Enough time to not panic and take the first offer that comes along, even if it's terrible. If your car breaks down and the repair is $1,200, you handle it. Annoying, but not catastrophic. You're not putting it on a credit card at 23% interest. You're not scrambling to borrow. Now let me address the obvious question. Victor, $5,000 sounds impossible to save if I'm already living paycheck to paycheck. I get it. If you're barely covering rent and groceries, the idea of putting aside $5,000 feels like being told to climb Everest when you can't afford hiking boots. But here's the thing nobody tells you. You don't save $5,000 by making one massive sacrifice. You save it by making 100 small adjustments that compound over time. Let me show you what this actually looks like. According to data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the average American household spends $3,008 per year on food away from home. That's $251 per month on restaurants, fast food, coffee shops, and convenience purchases. I'm not saying you should never eat out. I'm saying that if you could redirect just 1/3 of that spending, about $83 per month, towards savings, you'd have $5,000 in 5 years. 5 years? That's forever. Yes, it is, but let me ask you this. Where will you be in 5 years if you don't save it? You'll be exactly where you are right now. Still saying yes to your boss at 8:47 p.m. Still stressed, still trapped. Or you can start now, and 5 years from now, you'll have options. But here's the part that will actually speed this up. The hardest part about saving $5,000 isn't the math. It's the identity shift. Most people think of saving as a temporary sacrifice. I'm going to cut back for a few months and build up some savings. That doesn't work. Because the moment you hit a rough patch or get tired of sacrificing, you stop saving and go back to old habits. The people who actually reach $5,000 don't think of it as a temporary sacrifice. They think of it as becoming a different type of person. They become someone who has money saved. That's their identity now. And when you see yourself as someone who has savings, everything changes. You start noticing expenses you can cut without feeling deprived. You start finding ways to earn extra income that you never saw before. You start thinking long-term instead of just reacting to whatever crisis pops up next. Saving your first $1,000 is brutal. It requires massive willpower and constant discipline. Saving your second $1,000 is noticeably easier because you've already built the habits. By the time you're working toward your fourth or fifth thousand, the process feels almost automatic. Let me tell you about something called fuck you money. It's a concept that's usually applied to millionaires who have enough wealth that they can walk away from anything. Fuck you, I don't need this job. Fuck you, I don't need your investment. Fuck you, I'll do what I want. But here's what nobody talks about. You don't need millions to have that feeling. You just need enough to not be desperate. $5,000 is mini fuck you money. It's not quit your job and sail around the world money. It's say no to unreasonable requests without panicking money. And for most people, that's actually more valuable than being rich. Because here's the truth. You don't need to never work again. You just need to not hate your life every single day. You don't need infinite freedom. You just need enough freedom to make choices that don't destroy your mental health. $5,000 gives you that. Here's what happens when you cross the $5,000 threshold. Your boss calls at 8:47 p.m. asking you to work on your day off. You look at the phone, you take a breath, and you say, I can't tomorrow, but I can make it work on Monday if that helps. Not aggressive, not apologetic. Your boss says, oh, okay, yeah, Monday works. And that's it. The conversation ends. Because here's what you've learned. Most of the time, when you say no, nothing bad happens. The fear was in your head. The power imbalance was in your head. The $5,000 didn't change your boss. It changed you. It gave you permission to stop being afraid. Let me tell you what this looks like in practice. You start sleeping better. Literally. Studies show that financial stress is one of the leading causes of insomnia. When you know you have a buffer, your nervous system calms down. You stop lying awake at 3 a.m. running disaster scenarios in your head. You start performing better at work because you're not operating from fear anymore. You can actually focus on doing good work instead of just trying to avoid getting fired. You start having better relationships. Money stress is one of the top causes of conflict in relationships. When you're not constantly worried about bills, you have more emotional energy for the people you care about. You start thinking about your future instead of just surviving your present. And here's the kicker. Once you prove to yourself that you can save $5,000, you start thinking about the next $5,000. And the next. The first $5,000 is the hardest. It requires a complete shift in how you think about money and yourself. But it's also the most important, because it's the foundation of everything else. Here's my challenge to you. I don't care if it takes you 6 months or 6 years. Start building toward $5,000 in savings. Not for retirement, of course. What do you think? Not for a down payment on a house. Not for some distant goal. It's for your own peace of mind. So that the next time your phone rings at 8:47 p.m., you can decide whether you want to answer based on what you actually want, not what you're afraid will happen if you don't. $5,000 won't make you rich, but it will make you free in ways that matter more than wealth. And that's worth more than almost anything else you could do with your money.